This is the Louie T Network. Hey, either you're outside or you're
in the lab room.
Who else could it be? But me. You're me. Louie T, welcome. You are in the lab room. Of course, I'm your host, Louie. Thank you for joining me. This is the NFL Draft Prospects 101. Your guide to some of the biggest and hottest names of the 2015 NFL Draft. Now we're talking about defensive linemen, and let's get into the trenches a little bit and talk about some of these big nasties, because these guys are the unsung heroes of the defense. And just like their counterparts on the offensive side, they don't get enough credit for what they provide on the football field. And so let's talk about the defensive line. And if you're talking defensive linemen in the 2015 NFL Draft, you have to start with the guy that is the consensus #1 player in this draft, and that is USC's Leonard Williams. We start with him and we'll jump into his pros, and the list is lengthy, so let's not delay. Let's get right to him right away. You start with his size at 6'5", 302 pounds. You're talking about a guy that can do a number of things, and I love when guys not only show you their physicality, but show you another side of their ability. And the thing that I love about big guys is when they're smart. And so the next pro for him is his awareness. And here's a guy that he's a smart football player. And a wise man once told me, the next time I draft a dumb football player, somebody hit me over the head. And essentially what he was saying is, you gotta have smart football players. You gotta have guys that understand what it is they're supposed to be doing and why it is they're supposed to be doing what it is they're supposed to be doing. And Leonard Williams is one of those guys. You fool me once, okay, shame on you. You won't fool me a second time. There's a Utah game. I believe it's in 2014, if I'm not mistaken. Fresno State, maybe even. I might be having my teams mixed up. I watched so many tapes of this guy that they're all starting to bleed together. But there's a play where early in the game, they ran a screen. He went up the field. They got him. They sucked him in. He said, okay, I'm going to put that one in the memory bank. I'll store that one away for later. If you come back to that play again, I'm going to make you pay. And so later on in the game, as fate would have it, they go back to the well once again. It worked for them earlier, so they tried it again. Leonard Williams said, not this time. You got me once, you won't get me again. They try a screen right over the middle of the field like they had done the previous time when it had worked. Leonard Williams kind of hung back. He saw the screen developing, and he didn't react right away. He waited and he waited, and he baited the quarterback into the throw, and right as he threw the football, he steps in front of it, and like a defensive back with a set of wide receiver hands, picks the pass off and starts running the other way. And so to me, that is awareness, knowing what's going on around you and making plays. And so I love smart football players. Leonard Williams is definitely one of those type of players. Quickness. He's a guy that is cat quick and can get into the backfield and make plays, and he can get from sideline to sideline. He's one of these guys that always finds himself around the ball somehow, some way. And it's because of his quickness. Not the fastest guy in the world. We saw that at the combine. He's not one of these guys that went out and blazed a 4.7, 5.40 like we saw a couple of years ago with these defensive linemen who were just flying, and offensive linemen for that in the matter that were flying. He wasn't one of those guys, but his quickness is one of those attributes that you don't really think about it as much, but that's one of the things that separates him from a lot of the guys in this draft. You look at the Oklahoma kid, you look at the kid from Texas, Malcolm Brown. These are all guys that are similar size, but they're not as quick as Leonard Williams. I think his quickness is one of those attributes that separates him from some of the other guys in this draft class at the same position. He's very powerful, and that's another thing that, to me, I look at him and his frame doesn't scream powerful. He's got a wiry frame. You look at him and he's not very cut. He doesn't seem like a guy that is extremely strong. He doesn't strike you as one of these guys that is going to overwhelm you with power. You know what he looks like to me? He looks like one of those 80s. He has an 80s body. You know what that, when you do, let me explain to you what an 80s body is. Back in the 80s, guys lifted weights and some guys were on steroids, some guys were juicing up, but the guys that weren't, the guys that were naturally strong, some guys that were allergic to the weight room and they really didn't do a lot, but they were naturally gifted, like a Charles Haley. You go look at Charles Haley, strong guy, smart guy. Charles Haley did not have any definition or tone whatsoever, but he was strong as an ox. And to me, that's what Leonard Williams has. He has one of those early 90s, late 80s bodies where you're just like, this guy isn't that strong. And then he puts the paws on you and you realize this guy is pretty strong. And so he can sneak up on you with that power that he has, and he's a guy that can drive you into the lap of the quarterback. Seen it on a number of occasions watching the tape. This guy taking an offensive lineman and driving him 4 or 5 yards back into the backfield and wreaking havoc. He is a very powerful individual when he has correct leverage. He's a handful to deal with. Great hand usage, and that kind of lends itself to the power that I just talked about him displaying. The reason why he's so powerful is because he has great hand usage. He can beat you with a quick, and I talked about the quickness as well, and so all of these are starting to tie together. The quickness, his hand usage is another part of his quickness because he'll quickly get his hands up and get your hands off of him and knock you off balance. And again, anytime you're talking about in the trenches, offensive line, defensive line, the guy that's able to put his hands on the opposition first and lock them up is going to win the battle every single time. So if the offensive lineman is able to get his arms out, extend, lock them onto the defensive player, game's over. They win. But if the defensive player is able to knock those hands down before they're able to latch on, you've got the advantage if you're a defensive player, because all of a sudden that guy, that lineman is reaching out. He's overextended. You knock the hands down. He's off balance like this. You get a free run to the quarterback, or you get a free run to the running back. And so that's something that Leonard Williams is adept at. He's great at getting his hands up before the tackle or the guard is able to get his hands onto him, and he's able to then beat him into the backfield and make something happen. You also talk about him being able to get his hands up under the pad level of a guard or a tackle and driving them back. His hand usage is second to none in this draft, and that's part of the reason why this guy is looked upon as the best prospect coming out in this year's draft. Stack and shed. He's the guy that can stack and shed at the line of scrimmage, discard a tackle or a guard, whomever is blocking him. He can discard them and get to the ball carrier. And again, that's another one of those traits that if you're going to be elite, if you're going to stand out amongst your peers, something you're going to have to do along the defensive line is stack and shed. You got to be able to get to the ball carrier, because a lot of times you're not going to just be free. You're not going to just be roaming and waiting on the ball carrier to come your way. You're going to be engaged with an offensive lineman. You've got to find a way to manipulate that offensive lineman, and as soon as the ball carrier comes your way, get rid of him and get to the ball carrier, and Leonard Williams can do exactly that. Plays on the other side of the line of scrimmage. To me, this is one of my favorite attributes that Leonard Williams possesses, because as a defensive lineman, the reason why they don't get as much credit, unless you're putting up astronomical numbers like a J.J. Watt, a lot of times they don't get the credit they deserve because the numbers aren't there. But numbers can be misleading and very deceiving when you're talking about defensive linemen, because their impact on the game goes beyond numbers. You can't always quantify what they do on a game in, game out basis. You just have to watch. And he's the guy that will play on the other side of the line of scrimmage. I want to tell you what, if you go back and watch that Holiday Bowl, his very last collegiate football game against Nebraska, You want to see a guy dominating the line of scrimmage. You want to see a guy playing in the opposition's backfield. He could have easily have put on a Nebraska jersey and a 40-something and gotten their backfield and been their fullback, because that's how often he was on their side of the line of scrimmage. He dominated that game. Now, statistically, only had a sack, had about 1 or 2 tackles for loss. You wouldn't look at it and say, oh, this was a dominating performance. But if you watch the game, the guy was in the backfield the entire night. And because of his ability to get in the backfield and how disruptive he was and how disruptive of a force he was in that game, he was able to help his teammates make some tackles for loss and blow up some plays. And a play that might have went for 17 yards, because he got in the backfield and disrupted the timing of the play, only went for 4 yards. I mean, these are things you can't quantify, but that's the type of game he had against Nebraska. And he had that in a number of other games throughout his collegiate career. He plays on the other side of the line of scrimmage, and that is something that is going to be a huge, huge proponent for him moving forward at the next level. If you can play on the other side of the line of scrimmage, you're definitely going to be a force and a presence in the National Football League. And his versatility is the last pro. This is something that has scouts and teams and GMs salivating. And at USC, played all over the defensive line. Left defensive end, right defensive end, defensive tackle, you name it. 3 technique, you name it, he did it. The versatility is what has teams drooling over this kid, because he can play the 3 technique. He can play the 5 technique. So he's scheme diverse as well. I mean, if you're playing a 3-4 defense, he can be that 5 technique defensive end for you, set the edge in the run game, get to the quarterback, get a little bit of pressure from the outside. And so that's going to be a big help for some 3-4 defensive team. What about a 4-3 team looking for a 3 technique? He's your man. So he's a guy that is scheme diverse, and he showed some of that versatility at USC, playing all over the defensive line. So that's another feather in his cap, his versatility and his ability to play all over the defensive line and be scheme diverse moving on to the next level. So no team is really ruled out. You can't say, well, he doesn't fit what we do because he's a base, 4-3 end, or he's a base 4-3 defensive tackle. No, he's a guy that can play in the 3-4. He's a guy that can play in the 4-3. And in this day and age, where you play so much nickel because of how many receivers are on the field, it really doesn't matter anyway. This guy is versatile, and that is going to help him as well at the next level. Now we go to his cons. And again, when we talk about really good players, we gotta nitpick. We gotta pick at some things that they can improve upon, because nobody's perfect. And so doing the same thing with Leonard Williams, I'd love to see him use some more moves, okay? He's the guy that, for the most part, you know what you're getting from him. You're either getting a quick inside move or you're getting bull rush. So you're getting either speed to power, or you're getting a just straight quick move off the line of scrimmage, swim move, trying to get to the inside and be disruptive. I'd love to see him, and I saw a spin a time or two, but it wasn't actually like a spin to win. It was a spin because I'm out of options. I got up the field, it didn't work. How about I try a spin now and see if I can't get to the inside and make something happen? How about you use that spin off the snap and see if you can't make something happen? And I'd love to see him switch it up a little bit and be a little bit more versatile with his moves that he uses to try to get into the backfield. The ones that he uses are really good, but again, at the next level, guys are better. So you're going to have to switch it up. They're smart, and they'll pick up on what you're doing. And if you don't have a counter to your fastball, you're probably going to be put to sleep by some of the better offensive linemen around the National Football League. Will miss tackles, and this is probably my biggest pet peeve with him, is that there's no pod, okay? And for those of you who have watched me in the past, you know what a pod is when talking about defensive linemen. But for those of you who are new to the channel, pod is simply paw of doom. You gotta have a paw of doom if you are an elite defensive lineman. And I don't think that Leonard Williams possesses a paw of doom. And basically what that is when you're being blocked and a ball carrier thinks he's got a free run right past you, and you say, no you don't. You stick that one hand out there that you can get free and you just grab him and you stop him dead in his tracks. Or maybe he's able to drag you, but you're not letting go. You hold on and you make that tackle. That's the paw of doom, and you gotta have it. Because a lot of times you'll be engaged, offensive lineman has you, got his hands up under your pads, you can't go anywhere, running back thinks he's got a hole to run up, and you see the ball carrier coming, and you say, no you don't, and you grab him, and whether you can just stop him, some guys are strong enough, one hand, stop them dead in their tracks, other guys will latch on, and then, drag along for a little bit and make the tackle. Either way, you gotta be able to do that. He's one of these guys, he'll get in the backfield, have a shot at a 4-yard loss, and miss the ball carrier. Saw it against Boston College on a number of plays. They lost that game at Boston College in 2014. He had a couple of opportunities in that game to make some plays that could have altered the outcome. Instead, he misses tackles, the running back is able to get up the field, and the rest is history. So there are a number of instances, you watch the tape where this guy gets into the backfield and you're like, oh yeah, Leonard's about to drop this guy for a 3-yard loss, and the back gets away and you're like, oh man, you gotta make that tackle, buddy. But again, sometimes, and this happens to the best of them, in the National Football League, at the college level, the defensive linemen are going to get in the backfield and miss. The great backs in the league find a way. They always tell you gotta make the unblocked defender miss. Sometimes it's 5 yards up the field. Sometimes as soon as you get the football, gotta make a man miss. They're very adept at doing that. He's gotta be able to get these guys on the ground, or at least slow them up enough that the cavalry arrives and they're able to help you stop this guy for a no gain or a 2-yard loss, instead of just flat out missing and not really altering his path, allow him to get up the field and still pick up 6 yards on the play. When he's high, and to me, this is anybody. This isn't just Leonard Williams specific. This is any defensive lineman. For you look at any lineman at any level, it doesn't matter. If you get your pad level up too high, you're going to be blown back off the football. And Leonard Williams is no different. When his pad level is high, and he does not stay down, and the offensive lineman in front of him is able to get their hands up under his pads and drive him back, he can get blown off the football. Did see that a couple of times. Didn't see it as much in 2014 as I did in 2013. In 2013, guys were blowing him off the ball on a regular basis. In 2014, he kind of cleaned that up, kept his center of gravity and his balance a lot better, and kept it lower to the ground, and was able to make sure that he wasn't driven off the football, in an egregious fashion. But it can happen to him from time to time. He's just got to remember, at 6'5", you're a pretty big dude, so you got to keep the pad level down, because if you show your numbers and you're exposed, that offensive lineman is going to have a field day with your chest and your shoulders, and they're going to drive you out of the play each and every single time. And so that's Leonard Williams in a nutshell. I expect this guy to be off the board. Look, the Titans are trying to sell me on drafting a quarterback. I don't think they're drafting Mariota at all now. Are they going to trade it? That's another discussion for another day. But if they don't get out of 2, you can't sell me on the fact that they're not taking Leonard Williams with the 2nd pick. I don't expect this guy to get past Oakland at 4. If he's there at 4, Oakland is taking him at 4. Jacksonville may even take him at 3. He's not getting past 4. That's how good this guy is in Leonard Williams, and that is his NFL Draft Prospects 101 breakdown. If it happens in the National Football League, whether big or small, we cover it all here in the Lab Room. Come back and join me as I continue to break down anything and everything in the National Football League. See you next time. There's plenty more where that came from. While you're here, subscribe to the channel. If you want more Louie T, be sure to follow me on Twitter at @InTheLabRoom, or you can like the Facebook page at In the Lab Room. That's In the Lab Room on Facebook and at In the Lab Room on Twitter. Don't forget, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already done so.
Ew.